$10 harmonica. Cheap. It served Bob Dylan well. $100 harmonica. A bit more versatile. Two instruments that a low-level injury quadriplegic can handle quite easily. But let me ask a hypothetical. 50 years ago, if I were to ask you, or if a person with no movement at all in their arms or legs told you that they were going to not only conduct a symphony orchestra, but was going to play every instrument, him or herself, what would have been your reaction, do you think? I suspect you would have been a bit skeptical. Too many problems to overcome. Well, as my mentor at University of Illinois used to say, Tim Nugent, the presence of a problem is simply the absence of an idea. The theme in part of this talk is that the presence of a problem is simply the absence of an idea. In answer to that quadriplegic, a very inventive idea was seized upon by a computer programmer who also happened to be a musician. He developed my second most recent toy here, this vocalizer. It's a $300 voice input instrument, and you don't need really any dexterity to be able to use it. You push a button and hum or whistle or sing. Do-do-do-do-do. You can get do-do-do. Harmonica, keyboard, violin, all sorts of different instruments. It comes with a number of pre-programmed melodies. You can actually record one instrument on one track, then switch instruments, record your next instrument, whether it's violin or cello or drums or whatever, and proceed and record on this particular thing up to 5 tracks, and then play all of those instruments back simultaneously. So, in fact, a high-level quadriplegic could not only compose the symphony, but could conduct it and play the entire thing, play every single instrument in the symphony. With MIDI input, which is a standard musical interface for musical instruments to computers, and with a number of today's other high-tech solutions, music keyboards, digitized instruments, and track sequencers, what once was inconceivable is now not only quite possible but commonplace. In that I'm no musician, this vocalizer is really a luxury for me. It's not something I'd expect a third party to pay for. But in the rehabilitation of someone with a severe physical disability, there are a number of new technologies that can make all the difference in the world in terms of that person's independence, in terms of working, in terms of participating in one's community and family life. And one of the biggest challenges today is figuring out how to pay for this technology. As a severely disabled, quote, bedridden quadriplegic, there are a number of very inexpensive but essential technologies that enable me to go through most of the day without any assistance. What I'd like to do is spend a couple of minutes looking at some of these technologies. One of the simplest is what I refer to as a BSR box, after the company that manufactures it. You can get one of these little boxes from Radio Shack or Sears or Heathkit, and it has little number codes on the side and house codes from A to P and 1 to 16. plugs into the wall, and it has a jack into which you can plug any electrical appliance. And then here at the head of the bed, I have a corresponding box for each house code that has buttons from 1 to 16. If I punch button, say number A14, or another button, in this case the curtains to the sunroom close. Reversing the process opens them back up. Similar buttons control the lights, the TV, the fan doors, the door to the room, the whole range of electrical appliances that you probably have spread out throughout your entire house. If you're stuck in one place, you bring all that technology to you. And so not only is all the electrical stuff in here under remote control, about 40 some appliances at last count. I've made a number of other adaptations that have enabled me to reach a wide range of hardware quite easily. On the shelf here beside me, this 4-foot in diameter Lazy Susan, I have compact disc, VCR, tape deck, television, water for when my voice gets scratchy, toothbrush adapted, and my newest toy that we're going to come back to in a few minutes, a voice input computer. The first question a lot of people ask is, where did I get all this? Basically, I got names of carpenters out of the newspaper using a simple computer-assisted design program on the computer, drew a picture or pictures of exactly what I wanted, and got the different carpenters to give their response to the RFP, and then went with the person who seemed like they'd best be able to do what I needed to have done. But the rotating shelf, a number of other adaptations have made my life a lot easier here. I have difficulty holding up a book overhead or reading material. So I had a carpenter build a pull-out shelf with a plexiglass bottom that lets me put reading material up there, not have to exhaust myself holding it. Similarly, I have a telephone that you can see the back of there that has a few hundred one-touch numbers, program numbers, teleconferencing, and speakerphone that makes a big difference in terms of being able to communicate with the outside world. Also on the shelves here I have the floppy drives, the 3.5-inch disk drive, the hard disk drive for my computer, which is actually mounted on this top shelf out of reach, and that I don't need the computer itself. What I need access to, or used to need access to, was the keyboard to the computer. With the voice input computer, I'm making the shift from Apple to an IBM, and we'll be able to be completely free of the keyboard finally. But elsewhere on the shelves here, I have a computer monitor. You can see the bottom of it there. It's mounted face down so that I just look straight up and can see whatever it is I'm typing or speaking into the computer. There are a number of related adaptations all over the room that make a tremendous difference in the level of independence, the extent to which I'm able to communicate with the outside world, and the overall quality of my life that, for the most part, are very inexpensive solutions to what at first seemed like insurmountable problems. Overall, my biggest problem with technology, if you want to call it that, is one I'm sure I share with many of you. There simply aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things I want to get done. In the words of B.F. Skinner, though, in Walden 2, he observed, "The one fact that I would cry from every housetop is this: the good life is waiting for us here and now. At this very moment, we have the necessary techniques, both material and psychological, and I'd add technological, to create a full and satisfying life for everyone." How do you put a value on technology? How do you decide if something is worth it? Put a value on independence. For example, severe sleep apnea, which I've developed, is a neurological condition where you actually stop breathing during the night for extended periods of time. If left unchecked, over a period of time it can lead to heart damage and ultimately to a heart attack. The simple solution that costs a few $100s each month is a nighttime ventilator, which I won't strap it on completely, but fastens over my face like that and just pumps a breath of oxygen into my lungs every few seconds during the night. Is it worth it? I think if you're the person whose life was being saved, you'd probably agree with me. It's very definitely worth it. And there's a whole range of technology. You can look at virtually any area of activity the same way I looked at the harmonica and the whole musical aspect of technology. A 10-cent pencil and piece of paper may be all you need to pass a note to your neighbor or to write a poem like Xanadu. But with a $100 dumb terminal, quote unquote, to tie your telephone and TV to telecommunicate, you can reach out to neighbors around the world and poets around the world. With a $1,000 IBM PC clone and keyboard and modem and cellular phone, you could literally telecommunicate to work from a deserted desert island. Computers are now indispensable for hundreds of applications and have opened up thousands of opportunities. But if you had a disability and couldn't hold a pen or type on a keyboard, what would you do? Fortunately, another very good idea has solved that problem: the voice input computer. If you're a high-level quad and can't move your arms or legs, you certainly can't use a keyboard real easily. There is a solution, another good idea to solve that problem: the voice input computer. The newest of my technologies is this voice input computer. In the words, choose two, of B.F. Skinner, comma, quote, "The one fact that I would," choose three, right, left, choose two, shout from every housetop, spell it, hotel, Oscar, tango, backspace, uniform, okay. is this, colon. Okay, colon, open quote. The good life is waiting for us here and now, exclamation point. At this very moment, we have the necessary, choose to, techniques, comma, both, choose to, material and psychological, comma, to create a full and satisfying life for everyone, period. Voice console. Go to sleep. This voice input computer will enable me to stay active and write and telecommunicate as my progressive disability weakens my arm function and makes computing otherwise impossible. With drag and dictate, as it's called, the words I speak seemingly magically appear on the screen as I say them. I can now dictate about 30 words a minute, far faster than I could ever hunt and peck, and with very high accuracy. To me, it's magic. It learns my voice and my pronunciation as I speak. It comes with a 30,000 word active vocabulary and a backup vocabulary of another 80,000 words. And then I can add my own new words by simply spelling them out using the international alphabet of Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, etc. I can use the voice input for word processing, database, spreadsheet, telecommunications, or virtually any other purpose to which you'd put a computer. As I said, for me it means that I can continue to function as my degenerative joints disintegrate. For a high-level quadriplegic, though, with no arm movement or brainstem injury, drag and dictate may be more than just a good idea. It could very well be the difference between independent living and work or being completely dependent on Social Security or welfare. If the person with a disability, the high-level quad, can get a job as a result of drag and dictate, just the annual savings in Social Security payments and the gain in tax revenues combined would make the system quite economical. It truly amazes me when I think how far we've come in the past 30, 40 years. Consider the economics of my favorite hobby, computing. When I was a college student 25 years ago, we used a mainframe computer that rented for $60,000 a month. They'd keep the computer center open around the clock with us, the students, running the 3 shifts to get their money's worth. I remember when I first got my home microcomputer 10 years ago for about $1,500. It had more main memory, faster speed, and greater storage than the university's old mainframe computer. I almost felt guilty going to sleep with the computer sitting idle. In the 10 years since I bought my first personal computer, it's grown from 48K or 48,000 characters memory to 8 megabytes or 8 million characters. The speed has gone from 1 megahertz to 25 megahertz. The storage has gone from a cheap tape recorder to a 133 megabyte hard disk drive. I guess that configuration is probably similar to a lot of your offices, your office computers. The desktop microcomputer, though, that many of us take for granted today is a far cry from the old vacuum tube machines that would take up a whole room. It's been said that if automobiles had increased in value over the last 50 years, the same way that computer value has grown, today you'd be able to buy a car for $0.25 that could tow the Empire State Building behind it, would get a million miles to the gallon of gasoline, and could fly. Basically, yesterday's mainframe supercomputer is today's laptop and tomorrow's wristwatch computer. For people with low incomes, this steadily decreasing cost of much of technology is a very encouraging trend. A wonderful thing about the economics of much of this technology is that this price to performance ratio continues to improve as new ideas replace old. For people with disabilities, this is especially encouraging when these new ideas make usable technology affordable. And these are ideas that we all can use. The economies of scale of mass production, where a product can be used for everyone, drives the price for a person with a disability down to something quite reasonable. I think our best hope for equal access to technology, to the world of micros, and to the whole realm of high technology may be this trend, this continually decreasing cost of computers and related tech. Computing skills are rapidly becoming as essential as the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Computer literate job seekers clearly have an advantage in many different fields. I think the day is fast approaching, if it hasn't already arrived, where a computer will be a prerequisite in a number of fields. So far, many individuals with disabilities don't have access to this technology. By not putting computer technology into the hands of those who could use it and need it and really benefit by it, we're ignoring this country's most valuable resource, its people. Once empowered with access to a computer and a modem, it's virtually impossible for a recipient of a telecommunicated message to know that the person on the other end has a disability. With these reasons in mind, I call the computer the equalizer for a lot of us. But I fear that technology is widening the gap between the haves and have-nots. And yet the majority of disabled people still fall into the government's poverty category, statistically. It's with that statistic in mind that I believe we need new ideas and initiatives to find ways to empower the many folks with disabilities who want to work and who might be able to work if they had access to, say, a microcomputer. Nationally, the majority of working-age people with disabilities are unemployed. Here in Massachusetts, all you have to do is talk to a few folks who happen to be both disabled and low income to find people who have been left behind by our high-tech generation. When you can't afford a wheelchair, when you can't afford housing or food, it's very hard to think about putting money into a computer. A large block of our fellow citizens are being left behind by this widening technology gap. As some of you may have read on the front cover of the recently funded Massachusetts Assistive Technology Partnership, there are a number of barriers to access to technology for people with disabilities. With a disability, you can't benefit from a product. One, if you don't know the product exists. Two, if you don't know if it'll work for you. Three, if you can't afford to buy it. Four, if no one will buy it for you. Five, if when you do get it, it doesn't do what it was supposed to do. Or six, if you have no opportunity to learn how to use it. The most challenging of these barriers to equal access to technology is economic. If you can't afford to buy it, and if no one will buy it for you, you're up the proverbial creek without a paddle. From a practical point of view, figuring out how to pay for the assistive technology that your clients need to be able to work, to live independently, to function fully, must be one of the greatest challenges you face as a counselor these days. The challenge that we all share in rehabilitation is how do we overcome the economic barriers to technology. Your budget for client services is one way to pay for needed equipment. I'm sure you're aware of many of the other sources you can tap, from Small Business Administration to the Social Security PASS program. PASS is the plan to achieve self-support. Low interest loans, corporate donations. Between government and private insurance, a lot of money is theoretically available, but unfortunately the patchwork of public and private funding still leaves too many people with disabilities falling through the cracks. Again, the presence of a problem may be simply the absence of an idea. Aware that technology, from reading machines to computers, can be a great equalizer. Senator Kerry had a great idea that led to the Technology Act. The resultant state assistive technology grants will be looking at a number of new ideas to figure out which of them might become public policy. Consumers and providers need to work together to solve this economic dilemma. There are a number of good ideas floating around. One of the best I've heard recently is from Maine, the $5 million revolving fund for the purchase of assistive technology. On some scale, there have been programs, a number of different programs that have succeeded in empowering people with disabilities through access to computers and other technologies. But we need new ideas. We need your ideas on how to get appropriate technology to people with disabilities who need it and who can benefit by it. Robert Oppenheimer, in his book Science and the Common Man, said that, quote, "The open society, the unrestricted access to knowledge, the unplanned and uninhibited association of men for its furtherance, these are what make a vast, complex, ever-growing, ever-changing, ever more specialized and expert technological world, nevertheless, a world of human community." People with disabilities want access to this technological world, this world of human community. Another idea that's really come of age is that people with disabilities have the same inalienable rights guaranteed in our Declaration of Independence. That idea has become the basis of the disability rights movement. A new generation of advocates has developed, one that won't take no access for an answer. For example, members of ADAPT, an assertive advocacy group, have literally chained themselves to Greyhound buses in order to convince the bus company that equal access to their technology, transportation, was a good idea. Fortunately, after intense lobbying by a very broad coalition of people with disabilities and rehabilitation providers, Congress has agreed that equal access is a good idea and passed the Americans with Disabilities Act. The reasonable accommodation provisions in ADA can open the door to all sorts of businesses purchasing vital technology for new employees. ADA and the Tech Act are two good ideas. There are a lot more good ideas out there, and the Massachusetts and the other state Technology Act grants are going to look at a number of these ideas in the anticipation that some of them will become public policy. There's a new breed of specialists. Independent living centers are each going to be involved, or several of them will be involved in providing information referral and help rehab counselors and others, consumers, gain access to technology and funding. You can help your clients by working with your elected representatives, though, to help get other good ideas into law. There are a lot of different ideas that may be able to solve different aspects of the economic barrier to technology. One last quote from my former Illinois mentor, Tim Nugent. He used to say that diplomacy is letting the other guy have your way. Well, each of you are diplomats in terms of helping people with disabilities get access to technology that can literally transform their lives. We're really at an economic crossroads that may turn us back toward the past. Each of us must work in these hard economic times to get the resources to preserve threatened programs, whether they're technology programs or Social Security or PCA, attendant care services, independent living, or vocational rehabilitation services. We need to continue on the path toward equal access to technology. In the past 50 years, we've made a lot of progress. At the national level, we've gone from national leaders like FDR, who preferred to keep his disability out of sight and out of mind, to leaders who worked with us as partners, Mike Dukakis and George Bush, for example. We need to build on that progress. Too many of our brothers and sisters are still without jobs, without homes, transportation, education, healthcare, communications, and technology, and are still without equal access to the American dream. We look forward to a day when the civil rights movement is no longer needed, when assistive technology is readily available to everyone who needs it. With your help, united and committed to equal access to the American dream, we will attain our inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.